YouTube have been messing with my channel all day. We've been covering all kinds of things tonight. But we're going to be talking about the Brics Summit. I know that we've been past this because, I was suspended from ScrewTube. That's why we're talking late about this. But I want to go back and rehash on some things. A lot of people basically have put their 2 cents in. I want to be able to put mine in, and why it was dangerous for the U.S. To put sanctions on Russia. We're going to be talking about what the Brics currency, and it will destroy the U.S. economy more, like in 15 years, I think that the U.S. economy will be destroyed because of the Brics nation. I think that they don't stand a chance. On the Larry Some podcast show, let's talk about it. In 15 years, the United States is in trouble. The Brics nation, Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, and I'm missing one. Anyway, India. They will destroy the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is in trouble, and in 15 years, the Brics nation is going to destroy the U.S. economy. It's going to actually bankrupt the United States. And France is already in trouble because African nations are asking them to leave now. We have a lot of coups going on and things of that nature. But ladies and gentlemen, the United States is also in trouble. And the U.S. is pretending like they're not in trouble. They're pretending like they got everything all taken care of, right? The questions that needs to be asked is, can you sustain an economy where people are not using the American dollar anymore? That is an important question. And after the Brics Summit, ladies and gentlemen, it basically appears that this currency that the Brics nation has produced is going to threaten the U.S. financial and economic system, but also how the U.S. intends to maintain its global position in the world. This is going to be a reality check for the people in the U.S. with all kinds of problems that the U.S. is basically facing. For instance, the United States basically is a country that continues to believe that it's going to be the #1 nation forever. And that's not how that's not how the world works in a sense. That's not how the global system works. All empires at one point may have to fall. All empires do not last forever. And of course, America will not be an empire that's going to last forever. We see the crisis of the U.S. dollar because of the Brics currency and because that these other countries who had met in Johannesburg on August the 23rd of this year, before that. I think the Brics nation met before that. I don't know. But even in a sense then, when they met around August, they basically had one thing in mind, and that is to challenge the U.S. dollar to make globalization and trade more fair, more impartial is what they said there. But we question whether or not if BRICS are going to be fair to African nations, or is they just basically just pretending that they're friends with South Africa. Okay. Nevertheless, we went over this before my suspension. ScrewTube suspending us for 2 months and a half. We're coming back here live. You're listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Thumbs up. And today, tonight, I should say, we're talking about the United States currency and its global position will fall within 15 years. The United States basically has done the most foolish thing that a global power should do, and that is to put money and wealth into other people who are not really citizens of the United States. People who have migrated from other nations has control of wealth and resources, something that a nation should never, ever do when it talks about globalization, you see. But the question is, we'll start from the beginning. What is BRICS currency, and is the US dollar in trouble? This is the question Reuters had asked on August the 24th, 2023. And the writer here is Rachel Savage. And I want to basically try to, do this commentary with, reading an article that she basically written for Reuters here on August of 2023. What is the BRICS currency, and is the US dollar in trouble? Now, mind you, they said it's going to take that, I think, somewhere that, if you've been paying attention, is that you're going to have somewhere, I believe, around 165, I think that says $65 or 160, something like that. It's only going to be equal to worth one BRICS dollar. So in other words, you're going to have almost 165 US dollars to equal one BRICS dollar, something like that, they said. It goes on to talk there in the article that Brazil's president called on Wednesday for BRICS nation to create a common currency for trade and investment between each other as a means of reducing their vulnerability to the dollar exchange rate fluctuations. Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva made the proposal at the BRICS summit in Johannesburg. Officials and economists have pointed out the difficulties involved in such a project, given the economic, political, and geographical disparities between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay, and then there's a question for Rose there, is why is Lula wanting this to be a different currency among other people, like, the Chinese president as well, you see. And one of the things that came up, ladies and gentlemen, was the fact that there was no real balance in trade. There was no real balance in the trading of the US dollar, you see. The article goes on to say that still some indicators show activities have not fully recovered to levels of just a few months ago, and many economists remain cautious about the pace of revival following the fast expected reopening. The pullback in the retail spending has been increasingly broad-based, suggesting that it will take time to reverse the negative psychological impact on Chinese consumers brought on by 3 years of episodic lockdowns, said Louise Liu, senior economist at Oxford Economics. COVID-related lockdowns and curves have bit into travel, movie-going, and car buying last spring, and again at the start of winter, data from information providers and industry bodies show, you see. And then it goes on to talk about that people are slowly going back to nature. China's automobile sale hurt by the COVID curves. Those kinds of things that they basically are talking about here. It goes on to say here, in addition, Liu said a speedy recovery. Okay, talking about this Louise Liu from this senior economist at Oxford Economists. In addition, Liu said a speedy recovery is also hampered by shifts in household liquidity positions over the course of the pandemic, you see. Now, one of the things you have to be very much worried about is the de-dollarization of the U.S. Dollar. That's that's what these countries are wanting. They no longer support the United States being the number one person to make all the decisions. The United States, with its global influence on the world, is coming to an end. And then Reuters also did a different article here, and it talks about what is BRICS currency and is the US dollar in trouble? Okay, now that's what we started out with the podcast. Is the United States dollar in trouble? Of course it is. And I told you the next 15 years here, you're going to see a slight split of the United States dollar. It kind of reminded me of what Amos Wilson said when he talks about that the United States was in trouble and that we might have to go and fight China and other. But the article writes that Brazil's president doesn't believe nations that don't use the dollar should be forced to trade to the currency. And he has also advocated for a common currency in the Mercosur bloc of South American countries. A BRICS currency increases our payment options and reduces our vulnerabilities, he told the summit's open and plenary section. Well, what do BRICS leaders think? The article asks. South African officials said a BRICS currency was not on the agenda for the summit. So, in other words, the Lula is already trying to basically get, its own, to make sure there's a currency besides the US dollar. In July, India's foreign minister said there's no ideal of a BRICS currency. Its foreign secretary said before departing for the summit that boosting trade in national currency would be discussed. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the gathering, which he attended via video link, will discuss switching trade between member countries away from the dollar to national currencies. China has not commented on the idea. President Xi Jinping spoke at the summit of promoting the reform of international financial and monetary system. So what are the challenges of setting up a BRICS currency? Building a BRICS currency would be a political project. South Africa's central bank governor Lesega Kayongo told a radio station in July, if you want it, you will have to get a banking union. You will have to get FISA union. You got to get a microeconomic convergence, Kayongo said. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Importantly, you need a discipline mechanism for the countries that fall out of line with it. Plus, they will need a common central bank. Where does it get located? Trade imbalances are also the problem. Herbert Funich, a senior fellow at Zhejiang University, wrote in a blog for think tank OMFIF. All BRICS member countries have China as their main trading partner and little trade with each other. Is the U.S. dollar in trouble? Reuters go back and ask the question again throughout the article. Okay. It would basically means that if they're going to keep asking the question, then yes, maybe the U.S. dollar is in trouble here. Okay. So the question is the U.S. dollar in trouble? Brics leaders have said that they want to use their national currency more instead of the dollar, which strengthened sharply last year as the Federal Reserve raised interest rates and Russia invaded Ukraine, making dollar debt and many imports more expensive. Russia's sanction imposed exile from global financial systems last year also fueled the speculation that non-Western allies would shift away from the dollar. The objective, reversible process of de-dollarization of our economic ties is gaining momentum, Putin told the summit on Tuesday. The greenback share of official FX reserve fell to about 20-year low of 58% in the final quarter of 2022 and 47% with the adjusted exchange rate changing, according to the International Monetary Fund data. However, the dollar still dominates global trade. It is also one side of almost 90% of global forex transactions, according to the Bank of International Settlement data. De-dollarization would need countless exports and imports, as well as borrowers, lenders, and current traders across the world to independently decide to use other currencies. Let's see. They're already telling these other countries, like, hey, you trading that Brics currency. It's not recognized over here in this nation. It's not recognized over in that nation. So there's a struggle between what African nations will do. Will they basically use the dollar, or will they help Russia, China, and others to de-dollarize, to put the dollar at a standstill, to make it not as strong as it used to be, and to make it to be the number one currency in the world. And now that France has been kicked out of African nations, it came up on the radar here that France, according to the International Monetary Fund chief economist, that France will struggle to meet deficit targets. So China knows what it's doing. China basically is leading the economic pack of the community, you see. And one of the things that you have to be very, very careful about when you talk there about international trade is that what country offers more and what countries are going to be willing to trade with you and what countries are going to be able to help their financial systems over the others. Because it's basically sound like China just wants to do business, of course. And it really is going to hurt the United States, because the United States is basically is still thinking that it's the leader of the world. And it is becoming an issue here where China is going to be taking over as the global leader in the world. Okay. And so this right here, the BRICS Summit, works for Xi Jinping, because if China wants to take over as the global player, it's going to take over financially. And it's going to tell other nations that this is what the business in the game is going to be all about. Not war, not trying to bully other nations, not unleashing viruses up on population, all other stuff, but to have a global contest among developing nations. Okay. And I think with the United States now having trouble trying to bully other countries, we're seeing that the Western nations are panicking right now. And that the changes here relies upon also the struggling of women in other nations that wants to really feel they're independent and they can work on these jobs and things of that nature. So with France being kicked out of Africa and trying to engage in these failed coups, we've seen now how certain African nation who was colonized by France, these African nations are asking France to leave. They're kicking their soldiers out and other things, which is very good now, because you don't want, you should have basically already have done that when you supposedly gained your freedom, you see. But the problem with this is that China likes the Brics ideal around the dollar. Russia is liking this as well. And Russia and China are two of America's most powerful enemies in the world. If you compare the different types of things that BRICS nation could do, in any event, you would see that it's going to get more and more troubling for the struggling U.S. dollar. Now, right now, everything seems quiet, it seems fine, really because the United States has a colossal huge production of products and other types of things. They're still doing trade with certain countries, including certain African nations. But at the same time, the United States, of course, will have trouble in the next 15 years. When we talk about the illness in society, of course, divorce and marriages rates in the United States, and of course, as I talked to you about earlier, about how people no longer want to be joining the Army anymore, police officers anymore, firefighters and other things, what they call essential workers, nobody wanting to overwork themselves now. I think they're going to be a problem in society and the crisis. And this is the reason why these illegal immigrants are coming over here. But one of the most important things is that the United States has refused to give Black people their reparations. You see, and I think that is the biggest part as to why no one believes in the system anymore. See, the United States has built this whole entire system on distributing the booty of its economy in an imbalanced situation to other nations and telling other nations that, okay, you got to do this, you got to use the dollar, you got to then give us, this type of, products you trade, here's the paper money. That all is now dying out, okay? And so the global leader in this world now belongs to China, okay? If nothing, divert this course of action. And this is the reason why I think Joe Biden is going to lose the next presidency, I think. Because with him being old and with nobody is really basically, listening to him as an older president and him falling every damn place, I think that he is done with as being president. The man is old. Even if he won again, he will be 86 when he leaves office. And that is too old for a person to be running the nation. And so he still insists that he's going to run again and he's going to be in shape. And despite falling off bikes and falling off everything, He still think that he got it. So we'll see here. But again, the BRICS nation, I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to, do an update because after our suspension that Screw2 had on us, I wanted to go into depth about this. I wanted to go in and talk more about what China, Brazil, South Africa, and all these people were talking about. I was coming on and they were saying about the South Africa foreign minister was saying that I think what country wanted help, needed their help, and they reached out. I think it was Cuba that had reached out and wanted South Africa's help, and there was a challenge by an opposition party in South Africa. So we're talking about not being cold when you have certain types of black people that is helping the white supremacists to keep us in a segmented labor market, to keep us down, to keep us destitute, keep us without money and other types of monetary gain, where we can live a productive life and where we don't have to engage in crime. And, the white man, on TV talking about, this person committed that crime and stuff like this. And so we're looking at these issues now, and we are basically trying to reevaluate our relationship with the Europeans. And I think one of the most important things that we have to understand is that the BRICS nation has an agenda, and I think that agenda is going to basically, it's going to live on, because when you talk there about people wanting to, change the flow of the economic system because it doesn't work, because it's biased, because it makes certain people rich and most people poor, that's a system that people start to look at and say, oh, this is not working. We need a better system. And that's what these BRICS countries are saying. They're saying that the United States, being the only dominated player in the world, and that we have to always use the United States currency and blah, 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 blah. That is basically something that other nations is getting tired of. Keeping other nations down, keeping people in society living in bad conditions because they are not getting much food supply. The production of food, basically, it's not being given to the people that needs it, you see. And so I think with the BRICS nation, I think you have a different kind of situation here. The BRICS nation is going to really, really, really bring a different style to the world economy. China is not playing in this new global era, and it is ready and it's prepared for anything. It is looking to take back Taiwan. It is looking to basically prepare to fight the United States if they need to go to war. And they're basically trying to figure out ways unto which they becomes the global player in America, in the world, not America, in the world. And so I looked at the economic system. I looked at all of the things that they're doing with FISA responsibility, how they're going to rebuild and reshape their economy. South Africa, with dealing with trade. China, trading with China, China trading with other countries. I think that is going to be very, very, very powerful that they ignore the United States. As I told you before, the only thing that the United States mainly have is semiconductors and other types of computer and other types of industries that it can trade. But as Professor Richard Wolff points out, that every country has certain types of things that it can trade. Like, for instance, Russia is claiming that they're going to, give some grain to African countries for free and all this old stuff. Well, we will see. But there are some people who are saying that Russia is faking, that Russia does not really want to support African nations. And they're saying that. They're saying that Russia is faking over there. So is the BRICS nation, do they really want to do business with Africa? Because Africa being the prize and everybody exploiting Africa. And now you got leaders who is overthrowing these puppeteer leaders and getting them out of there so that real African people who are not afraid to revolutionize the system is going to basically say no to exploiting African countries now. So now there must be fair trade. The economic relationships among country must show that um, that the world stage involve everybody, fairness and partiality of trading, and all of that is now being talked about and was talked about at the BRICS nation, and then basically trying to avert and divert from war in which these Western nations keep on trying to engage in. Okay, China is looking to do business in the world and trying to refuse to basically, to go out and have people fighting and interfering with people's social lives like the United States and these Western powers do. You see, so now it's becoming different. In the next 15 years, you're going to see a different America. A different America with these illegal immigrants coming over here in our neighborhoods, and that now there's an issue with that, and we'll be talking about that tonight, tomorrow, on the Lawyers Podcast Show. You've been listening to the Lawyer Henderson Podcast Show. We are live, coming back after our 2.5-month suspension. Lawyer Henderson is in the building. You've been listening to the Lawyers Podcast Show. Hit that like button, thumbs up, and also like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for listening.